name is Denny O'Neil. I retired last year after 34 years in the fire service. My last role was with CAL FIRE as Assistant Chief of Wildfire Home Hardening, where we work with communities throughout the state in high fire hazard areas to reduce their risk through practical and community-based mitigations. So what I want to do today, or also a little bit about what I'm doing now. So as I retired, I currently own a business called Wildfire Adaptive Solutions, where I provide fire modeling. I do GIS-based wildfire risk assessments. I do business and home vulnerability assessments, and then provide mitigation plans to homeowners, neighborhoods, HOAs, and communities. So for this morning, I wanted to dispel 3 common myths about the updated, or the currently updated, California wildfire fire hazard severity zones. How many people know what those are? Okay, oh, everyone, this is great. How many people are afraid of it? All right, you shouldn't be, and hopefully I can dispel some of those myths. So, and before we do that, there are a couple people that don't understand what fire hazard severity zones are, so let me kind of level set with you and let you know what those are. So the fire hazard severity zones are science-based maps that describe the likelihood of a wildfire occurring and its intensity in a given area. And by that, they are based on vegetation, terrain, weather, fire history, and they describe how a fire moves across the landscape. So the state fire marshal is the one responsible for them, and they classify these lands into moderate, high, and very high fire hazard severity zones. And as Garrett had mentioned, they were recently updated. The last time they were updated was in 2007. And so there's been a lot of science and a lot of learning, and so these new maps use that new learning and science to be able to produce new maps, which means there's new areas that have been identified as being at risk. And most of you in San Luis might have noticed that there's some new areas in San Luis Obispo. So let me get into the myths. The first myth is fire hazard severity zones describe my home's wildfire risk. So that is incorrect. As the title explains, the fire hazard severity zones describe hazard, which is the probability and intensity of a wildfire event. Risk goes one step further. It looks at what is being exposed and what is that thing being exposed. Is it vulnerable to wildfire? So it takes it one step further. To understand the wildfire risk to a structure, you gotta be able to consider some additional things. One is flames, radiant heat and embers moving towards your house, which we call the exposure. And then we have to look at the infrastructure of your home or business and see if it's actually resistant to that wildfire burning towards it, which we call risk. So the fire hazard severity zones intentionally do not include risk. They stop at hazard. They do not evaluate your home, its construction, or the mitigation actions that you've put in place. So myth number 2, and this is a big one for a lot of people, insurance companies use fire hazard severity zones to set rates or deny coverage. So that is also incorrect. Insurance companies rely on what we call catastrophe models, or short CAT models. And the CAT models, these are complex tools designed to estimate financial loss, not just fire behavior like the fire hazard severity zones. CAT models evaluate hazard, like I talked about. They evaluate exposure. They evaluate susceptibility. And they also add the potential financial impacts of insured losses. Fire hazard severity zones are not insurance maps. They are fire science and planning tools developed to inform land use decisions, building standards, and public safety, not insurance underwriting. Myth number 3, if my home is in a fire hazard severity zone, I will not be able to sell it. And this is also false. The fire hazard severity zone does not mean a home is unsafe or unsellable. What it means is a wildfire exists, and the good thing to know is that that risk or that hazard can be mitigated and managed. For new homes and developments, California has a whole suite of standards and codes. We have fire-resistant building material standards, we have site development standards, and we have defensible space requirements. So these measures are designed to create resilient communities that are appropriately matched to the wildfire hazard they face. And then for older homes, we have a whole suite of retrofits that can be employed along with defensible space to make those houses also resilient. So in closing, fire hazard zones do not tell you what will burn. They tell us where wildfire is possible and how intense it can be. Wildfire risk is shaped by the choices that we make, how we build, how we maintain properties, and how we invest in mitigation. When used correctly, these maps are tools for smarter planning, safer communities, and informed leadership, not cause for alarm.